Oh, look at that. All right, you guys ready to get cracking? All right, we'll see how this goes. We got a good turnout. Thanks for showing up, guys. We got a couple people online too. So, for those that haven't been here, this is SideJug, Central Iowa Java Users Group. It says Java in the name. We're not always Java, but we will give you special bonus points if you have Java talks. We'll see if this works. That would be funny if it didn't. Maybe I'll speak from the back. That's what I get for having my stuff. I probably didn't click on it. I'm such a rookie. I just need to click on my own slideshow so it goes. No, of course not. Does it work now? No, it works. No, it works. All right. What is a SideJug? I already talked about what it was. Volunteer led. So there's a couple of us, me, Jody, Neil, that are here. Trying to put all these together for you guys. We also have some folks that aren't here. Anything about learning, teaching, sharing, and networking, obviously an emphasis on Java and the JVM. Everybody's welcome. Students, Java, front end, back end, anybody, even if you don't know about how to write code. We are also on LinkedIn or X. If you look for Central Iowa Java Users Group or just SideJug, should work. Maybe. Oh, now of course I can't click again. I'm just choking. Click there. Oh. How to get involved? We meet monthly, virtual and in person. So we're starting to go hybrid. We used to be more virtual than we are lately. We're going to try to be every month in person with an online aspect if we can. Usually it's the third Thursday of every month, but next month it is the second Thursday. So watch out for that. We are looking or open to more people wanting to organize or help organize. So if there's somebody that's passionate about user groups or somebody that's passionate about Java JVM or anything in the Des Moines area, and you might know who they are, we would love to have them join our crew to help organize these events. If you would like to speak here, we have an open call for speakers on sessionize.com. You can find us there, or just the best way to help out is to attend and bring a friend. Maybe. This is just going to be every slide, isn't it? That's okay, thanks.
I know you.
Just like click. There we go. All right, sneak peek. Next meetup will be July 10th. So not a month from now, but like 3 or 4 weeks from now. July 10th, we are having Michael Carducci. I'm probably going to say that wrong. From No Fluff Just Stuff. If you've seen him previously, if you've ever seen a talk by a guy who does magic tricks and also teaches programming, it's this guy. He's great. Super entertaining. He will be here at Source Allies on July 10th, six secrets to succeeding with microservices. So that will be our next thing to watch out for. So feel free to follow us on socials to see that stuff. Click it, Jody. I think that's the last of my talk. All right, we got lightning talks. So tonight we have 4 presenters. We said, hey, give a talk, 5, 10 minutes, whatever you feel good with, about anything. So hopefully something speaks to somebody and we'll be good to go. I don't care who goes first. Anybody wants to rock, paper, scissors? John's going. All right, John's got it.
I want to get it over with.
All right, John. That should work, however you want to attach it or fold it or whatever. If you present in the Zoom, it should.
All right, can you hear me? That work? There we go. My presentation isn't too exciting, but just give you a little bit of background for myself. I currently work on a DevOps team managing critical Java applications. We have Jenkins for CI systems, CI/CD systems, about 80 of those controllers running on AWS. And then we used to manage JFrog Artifactory for artifact management. It was a Java-based application. That one is commercial. We had multiple instances geographically. These these Java applications are critical for the software development environment. So if they were down, people wanted them up as quickly as possible. Or if they were down, they would take down a lot of the software development factory. Just to let you know, I'm here at the Java user group. I really don't write Java code. I have enough capability to open up a PR and struggle to get it approved, but I did have some PRs approved on some Jenkins plugins. But I do know a lot about running the Java JVM or Java applications because of running those critical applications. So I know about the JVM, memory management, what the threads were used for on these applications, how to enable logging, tracing, tuning garbage collection, knowing when it was a normal garbage collection versus like abnormal. I know what OM is, a lot of performance tuning background. So that, my passion is kind of like, teaching and coaching other people on our team on problem solving, how to go, track down what the problem is and how to solve it. And I always want to make sure everyone on the team knows how to do this and stuff, because I might be on vacation. Someone else might be on vacation, knows how to do all this stuff. And so the junior team members, you need to make sure that they know how to manage the applications when you're not there and you don't get a call when you're on vacation somewhere. So that's my background. So what is a stack trace? I know some for programmers, just bear with me. This is pretty basic stuff. If you're writing Java code, you know what a stack trace is when you compile it and stuff. But stack trace, it's amazing. Like the new junior people, they see a stack trace like the one in the example here, and they like, I can read that first line, and I don't know. They don't know what to do. I mean, it's like when you're reading documentation. They read the first sentence of a paragraph, and after that, it just is gobbledygook. But there's a lot of information on that stack trace. It tells you, where the problem occurred, that exception occurred. It tells you, it has the call trace, so you know where at in the code it's at and how it got there. All this really good information you need as your starting point to investigate your problem and stuff. So breaking it down on the stack trace, there's 5 different sections of it. The first part here is the what thread it came out of, and that's important. Certain threads do maintenance stuff. Certain threads are servicing a request or something like that, or executing a request and stuff like that. So that tells you which thread is having the problem. The next one is the exception type. The exception type will help you determine the nature of the problem. Like, is it a networking issue? Is it a file IO issue? Is it a coding application issue or something like that? So that's, and that part of there. Then the teal one over there, that teal one is, a brief error message or a summary of what the problem was. After that is the call stack, and it could be, this is a example with 2 lines. Usually it's about an example with like 30, 40, 5 pages, who knows what. And so, but that's the call stack. It's how it got to that method, or the path of methods it went through there. And the really cool thing is it tells you the line numbers of where the source code's at. So you know exactly where that exception came from. So it helps you, like, out of all the source code in, like, for example, Jenkins plugin, it's lots of directories. It helps you narrow it and find it. Exceptions, common exceptions, just a couple different things. Like I said, exceptions tell you like how to narrow down where the problem might be, like a null pointer or in the array out of bounds. That's, something's screwed up in the application. Someone wrote it and data's wrong or out of bounds or something like that. There's IO exceptions, like you're reading and writing files or data. You get an IO exception, like, disk full or something like that. So that tells you probably should go look at disk space. Connection timeouts, read timeouts, stuff like that, usually are networking issues. So you would want to look at networking related things. Out of memory error, I ran out of memory in the JVM, and then all things start going downhill. Stack overflow, the JVM stack overflow, probably like a recursion error, or infinite recursion until it ran out of stack. And the reason I bring this up a little bit is, the messages tell you what the problem was, and the number of times that we start working with junior members or not experienced enough, it's like, well, the message says connection timeout. It's like, well, I wonder if it says problem over here, and they go off and it's like, no, it told you connection timeout. You need to see what does that mean. So go look up in the documentation what connection timeout means. It's a network related issue when establishing a new connection. So you want to maybe go look at some of your Nginx logs to see if there's some issues, there. So it helps narrow down this big whole pile of stuff. You got stuff running on cloud, you got your application, you got your database backend, you got your Nginx proxy in front. It helps you narrow it down where to go look for some of this stuff and where to go. And obviously observability helps quite a bit on especially when you're talking across multiple cloud and multiple log files and all that kind of stuff. So basically how to use this, I always tell junior people, look at the exception type. When you get to the exception type, go to the topmost line. You don't really care about the bottom of the stack trace because that's where at the very beginning when the application or the thread was initialized. The first line down will tell you the method where the exception came out of and the line number right there. And then based on that, you go seek the source. So if it's your internally supported application, you would go find the source code on github.com. In our case, in Java, for example, we go to github.java.com/Jenkins-CI and go find the class, and then we go find the source code, and we go find what version of Java are we running, or what version of Jenkins are we running. We go make sure that we pick that as the tag. So we're looking at the exact same version that we're running in production, and then we go look and try to figure out what's going on. So I'm really passionate on making sure, especially at DevOps team, whether that everyone on the team knows how to do this, knows where to go, coach them on where to go to find the Catalina log, whether that's in. That's not me. Okay. Go to coach them on where to go find the Catalina log. Whether that's a log file or whether it's in some sort of a centralized logging location like Elk or Datadog. Know how to find the source code, how to read the stack trace, and it's just the start to help them get going on debugging. Because I mean, the key skill that you want to develop, everyone on the team should have, how do you go root cause and diagnose these problems in production and practice it, because when there's a serious outage, you want to make sure you have a playbook or you right at your fingertips, what tools to use. Like, I know how to use JStack. I know how to use these diagnostic tools. I know how to collect a heap dump. I know how to collect a thread dump so that I can preserve all the information and do some analysis on it. So also another common thing I tell people is there's exceptions going on all the time usually. It's hard to track the noise from the real errors and stuff. But usually if there's an exception, it usually means something, might be innocuous. Your application might be running, but it will tell you stuff like maybe things aren't configured correctly, or they only show up during application load or something like that. So pay attention so you're familiarized what the logs look like, what the exceptions look like on normal running system, and then what does it look like when it's not behaving. So that's, and just one last slide here. This is a recent example. I probably do deep dive on some of these problems, probably once every 3 months or so, maybe once or twice a month, maybe. It comes and goes. This was a recent example. So Jenkins would crash as soon as someone would load their test results. They have a test framework that generates a JUnit XML file. And for whatever reason, you go to try to browse it through the browser, and all of a sudden Jenkins starts, generating an OOM exception and starts the downhill spiral until it crashes. So based on that OOM exception, we tracked it back to this thread dump here. And this thread dump was the thread that was executing the load this test suite. And again, I'm not a Java expert, but I go look in here. I know, like, I don't know, what's Xerxes? I didn't know what Xerxes was. I mean, maybe you guys do because you do Java programming, but Xerxes is an XML package to read and write XML data. It's like, okay, well, I know JUnit or JUnit uses XML files, and looking at this, it looks like it's reading and parsing an XML file, which is it's reading the test results. And then we get down to the bottom thing, and this I shortened this up because this is like a, I don't know, 10-page long stack trace, and where it starts repeating itself again over and over here. And I zoomed in on this abstract test action.java line 286. So that is the line number I need. Now I got to go find the source code. Well, that led me to the source code in GitHub. So I go over to GitHub. Get over here. Go over to GitHub. And here's the actual source code of the method that it was calling. And then I go look, I don't know exactly how I got to this, but, looking through there, I looked, okay, we were upgrading Jenkins to a new version. So one of the things that we found out is the old version was fine. The new version wasn't. So we look at different version numbers. We look at the different versions. So I started looking at the version. Oh, look, there's a PR that they went and tried to improve the memory management usage or the memory usage of test units. So then I found this JIRA. Again, if you're working with open source, you really, need to know, develop relationships with the community of the source that you're using. So I've reached out to, to make sure I have a relationship or contact for Java problems to a Java maintainer or a Jenkins maintainer. But I found this issue, and I started going through there. I found oh, you're trying to load them all in memory and stuff. It's like, okay, well, I found some properties in there that you could set to change like how many of those test results you load. Come to find out, where I work, their test suite generates 50,000 test cases in a single run, which is abnormally, obscenely large. And that's where the problem occurred, because not only would load the one test suite, it would actually try to preload, lazy load some of the previous versions. So it was loading like the last 20 builds of test suites, or trying to, and that's where the root cause was. So it's just a good example of how I used it. I want to make sure I pass this information on to junior developers and help develop their debugging skills and stuff like that. So that's all I have. Sorry.
John Langley, PI.
Oh yeah. I think that's the one.
Mic test, mic. The mic working? It's good. You may need to give me permissions to share again. So sharing not turned on? I don't know. Okay.
That's not Kyle.
All right, we're good. Okay, so here's a scenario. Show up Monday morning, and instead of doing whatever you plan to do, one of your important business web apps is down. You're getting a page that looks like this instead of what people are expecting. People are starting to ask you questions. You know you're going to get more if you don't do something about it. So what's going on behind here? In this particular case, the web app is served on an ECS service. All of your infrastructure is AWS. So ECS service there in the middle. That means we get an image from a third-party development company, and we are running that image on a container. Behind that are two external databases, also AWS. And then in front of that are a few things. There's some DNS records and Elastic Load Balancer and some other junk that makes all of this work so that when people go to a URL, they actually get a page back. So what's the problem? The ECS service is connecting to these databases by using credentials that are in environment variables, DB host, DB password, a few others. You've probably seen this kind of thing before. What do we know about databases though, especially those in cloud environments? From time to time, those credentials rotate, right? So if those credentials rotate and the username and password, or the password anyway, is rotated, how does the ECS service know that it needs to get new credentials? If it's set as environment variables, those are going to remain static. The password it has is stale. No go on the connection. Now this problem, if this problem had no solution at all, it wouldn't be a surprise Monday morning, right? So there is a solution in place. The timer to rotate credentials for the database is set up for 1 a.m. on Monday. Additionally, there's a timer to update service of the ECS service at 2 a.m. Update service is basically just like a reboot of a server. So it's going to bring everything back up, and then those credentials will be refreshed at that time. So under normal conditions, this seems to be okay. It seems to work. Credentials rotate at 1 a.m. An hour goes by when everyone else is sleeping, no problem. ECS service goes through an update. It rotates, service is good to go by the time people get to work. But in the case of AWS RDS credentials, when you set a 1 a.m. time for that rotation, you're not guaranteed that that's actually going to happen at 1 a.m. It may happen at 1 a.m. It may also happen at 5 a.m. The SLA for that is not tightly defined. So in this case, the rotation of at least one of these databases happened after 2 a.m., after the ECS service actually went through its update. So what's another way of doing this? Instead of having a timer for your ECS update, you could have it work off of a trigger. When the database credentials rotate, you have a trigger set up in your cloud environment to then trigger the ECS service to update. That looks fine. So how do we do this a little bit more in practice? So on the left side is a kind of simple workflow for doing that. We trigger a AWS step function. There's other ways to do that, but you can have your database credentials start a step function, and then the steps it will go through in this case, it will wait a short period of time for the rotation to complete, because you actually want that to complete before you have ECS go through its update. You have ECS update, and then you're done. But we're smart, and we think that we can make this a little more complicated and do something better. So because we have two database credential rotations happening and two rotations, we know that this is going to be triggered multiple times. And it may be triggered multiple times in a very short duration, meaning when one ECS service update is happening, another trigger is going to come up and send another update service call. So you're going to be trying to reboot essentially twice. Now, this isn't really a problem in theory. AWS can handle that fine. You can send many updates at an ECS service, and it will go through its deployments and update, and eventually it will reach a steady state and your app will serve. But in my experience, an ECS service update that might take 5 to 10 minutes in normal conditions, when you throw multiple deployments at it, it might take 45 minutes or longer. So there can be a delay there. So in the second workflow here, we wait for the credentials to rotate, and then we're going to check to see if any deployments are currently underway. So if a deployment is already underway, if a ECS service update is in progress, we will go ahead and skip calling that service update again. Otherwise, it means that it does in fact need to be updated, and we will take the right path. So how can we do this? We can call describe ECS service for the service we're using for our web app. And what you will get back is, of course, no surprise, a big block of JSON. This is a small snippet of that JSON payload you get back. So there's a list of deployments, and then so a list meaning, this is a snippet of one of those deployments. There will be potentially many in here. And I want to draw your attention also to the very bottom, rollout state in progress. So in this case, when you described ECS service, it brought back a list of deployments, and one of them was in progress, meaning we would want to take the left-hand path of the right step function. We would want to skip doing an additional update. So we could do it with Lambda, and I am also not much of a Java developer, but I figured this being a Java meetup, I would have ChatGPT generate me a Lambda function that looked more or less reasonable. So it's using a SDK for ECS described services, and we're going to get that payload back that we saw in the previous slide. And then it's just going to do some interpretation on that to see if any deployments are in progress. And then it's going to return a very small, nice, slim payload that is basically just a Boolean true or false to know if a deployment is in progress or not. Then in the next state of the step function, we can easily interpret, do we need to go right branch or left branch? So another way you can do this is with JSON and using SDK states in a step function. But what I mean by that is when you put together a step function in AWS, that middle state there is I think they call it an SDK task, or you can have a little block that is doing a very specific API call. In this case, describe ECS service. So you don't actually need to write a Lambda function. You can just slot that into your step function and have it make that API call and get that JSON payload back. Now you're dealing with that large block of JSON payload though, and you're not having a very slim, small Boolean value to use in your next choice state. So what you can do is you can interpret that. And if you've worked with AWS step functions, you've probably used JSON path to interpret a JSON payload. Somewhat recently, AWS started supporting JSON too, which is another set of tools to interpret JSON. And it allows you to do something like this snippet at the bottom, where we can call a count function, something I don't think you can do in JSON path, and look for any deployments that are in progress. And then say, if the count's greater than 0, we know that one is in progress. And then we can use that same branching logic to go right or left in our choice state. So putting this all together, this is what the end step function looks like. We have our wait, we have our describe ECS service, and then we have our choice state, our update service, and then success. On the left-hand side is a path that included actually calling update service. And then on the right-hand side there, it was able to skip because we were able to interpret the response from ECS service with JSON. So taking a look at this, was this all worth it? In this case, probably not. It was more complex than it needed to be. And there are only 2 triggers. So it was only going to call update service twice under normal circumstances, unless you were maybe testing it. But if you were having many triggers, like, 10 or more, and you're going to be throwing those all at your ECS service, it may be worth doing this kind of interpretation. And JSON, this is the first time I had used it, and it allowed us to do this in the step function natively instead of having to do something like write a Lambda, which I thought was pretty cool. And lastly, I would just like to point out that this guy's hat says something like Hyundai Horhing Harderback. Not sure what branding that is. Yeah. So that's it. Thank you. There you go, sir.
Thank you. Gotta get on there. Okay, cool. We can see everything, all good? Cool. Hi, my name is Alex McClure. I'm a consultant with Lean Techniques. Been there for a little over 8 years now. Done everything, including Java, like .NET, JavaScript, distributed systems, web apps, overly complicated progressive web apps, you name it. So today what I want to talk about is kind of some tips I've learned for logging. Usually when I get into new teams doing technical coaching, the first thing I think whenever I get into their logging setup is, yeah, that. What the hell? Okay. So when I'm working with these teams, a lot of times what I want to do is get them to a 0 error log status. Okay. In a daily operation of your application, how can we get to having 0 errors? Making errors actually mean something again. So why should I care about my logs? They are insights to everything, right? They are how we make our problems apparent. We can customize them to the exact amount of detail that we need. They allow for quick root cause analysis, especially when you get good logs paired with knowing how to read stack traces, right? And then they can help you find defects before they become a major problem. If we can find defects before our users find our defects, that's great. When our only way of finding defects is when they get to our PO and our PO is quite pissed and their director is pissed, not great, okay? So let's talk about that. I have a defect somewhere, but I can't really find it. Things you might hear around that. Oh, just ignore those. They've been there forever. We don't know why it happens. I don't see that in prod. So kind of an early solution to this is going to be your log levels, right? Think really critically about what should this be when you set your log levels, okay? Instead of saying Fred was here in a debug every single place, right? Maybe talk about, hey, what does our team think is an error, fatal, info, debug, warn, right? Those kind of common log levels that you see across all these different libraries. And then think, would this be valuable information for me to put out there in this environment? So avoid logging just for the sake of logging, right? The amount of times I see debug messages, entered function. Yes, that's how programming works, okay? We can do that. We can do better, okay? So let's break down how I would look at these levels, okay? This might differ for you, might differ for your team, but this is kind of what I recommend. So fatal, your app is dying, okay? If you're doing this, you're going to get a phone call at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., whatever ungodly hour of the night that you do not want a phone call. This can be you lost your database network connection, right? Upstream services are failing, right? And hopefully you can have upstream services not wake you up, but that's a little more advanced. And then missing artifacts, right? Oh, we failed a deployment, something got deleted, oops, it's gone. You know, less of an issue in cloud deployments nowadays, but kind of old school servers, yeah, that happens. So going to errors. This is probably the most misused one I see, okay? This means your software is incomplete. I see this and warning mixed up so much, okay? So when I say it's incomplete, you have unhandled exceptions, no pointer exceptions. We need to go fix those right away, right? Anytime we're seeing, formatting exceptions, any of that, right? Array index out of bounds. You have incomplete software. You need to go fix this. You see an error, go put it in your backlog, right? Go fix it, okay? Most of these should probably be a push notification to Teams or Slack or whatever messaging you're using, right? And then we prioritize it. We treat it just like any other defect. Warnings, again, some of the most misused and most underused. These are expected failures of your system, right? A user gives you a bad request. I'm not putting an error to that. That's expected. We caught the bad request. Cool. Now, if we start seeing hundreds and hundreds of bad requests very quickly, we might want to have a little bit of warning on that. So when you start to see a lot of them, that's when I want you to start thinking, okay, I should probably have an alert to this. Volume of this can mean something, right? So doesn't mean there's always a problem, but again, you see a lot, think about it. So a good example of that was on a team where there was a system that just shut off for like 8 hours every night to try to save money. Well, when you're kind of dependent on that system to run, it's expected behavior, but still kind of a pain in the butt. Info, we use this one a lot. Okay, these are your transactional logs. And my recommendation, one coming into the system, one going out of the system, and anywhere at your boundaries. So if you're going to a database, you're making an API call, any of those, put an info log. Make sure you have one on the way out, one on the way in, know your status, see how you handled it, right? Was it successful? Really easy way to see that, okay? Make these really short, make them informative, really dense, but don't put too much into it, okay? And then debug. We probably don't see these in prod, and I kind of use them sparingly, and I try to use them in a way that if I do turn debug on, it's not just flooding me, but it's actually giving me good information that I might not need for the normal usage of prod, okay? If we start seeing errors in prod, right, or certain things that we can't see, we might flip up the debug log level, right, and set that up and make sure that we have useful information, right? The entered method or blank was here or called. Yeah, that's useless. Get rid of it, right? Kill it off as soon as you're done developing. All right, cool. So what I want you to think about, take a look at these for a second and ask yourself, how would you classify that? So number one, database configuration not found, shutting down. Yeah, that'd be a fatal, right? Okay. Post request made to, how did you find this path? I'd put an info, right? Entering function, user repository, get user. Yeah, we know how to make calls. We can do that. Good job. API for batch processing database responded with 503 will retry in 3,600 seconds. Probably a warn, right? And then could not divide by 0, identity exception. Yeah, that's an error, right? We probably don't want to do that. Okay. So moving on. Problem, I have a distributed system, multiple threads running, high traffic, all this, it's super fancy, it's super advanced, but I can't track users through my system or requests through the distributed system. How am I going to fix that? So things we see with that, who's doing this? The problem's on their end, they own that, it's all good, we don't have to worry about it. Or our system's being flooded and I cannot tell which system is sending it to us. This is where I would get to trace IDs, okay? You can do this in your own system, but hopefully you can get your organization at large to start adopting this, right? So anytime that you have a new thread started up, whether this be an API that you're hosting and you have a request coming in, have a trace ID so that any logs that go with it are then correlated, okay? How do you tell all these apart? Get user entered, get user entered, right? Which one's which? It's all the same stuff, right? Add your trace, you're going to be able to tell who's doing what, right? Maybe not who, without our next tip of map diagnostic context, right? MDC. Really, really, really powerful tool for any developer, okay? Almost every logging library supports this in some way. And if it doesn't, you might want to look for a new logging library. These are fantastic. Log4j, Log4net, any of those, it's right there. So this is information is kept on a per thread basis. Some useful things to put in there might be your user IDs of who is making the request, right? Make sure you're not putting anything sensitive in there. Careful about that, okay? But request info, what path is this coming in on? Especially if you can kind of anonymize the path without IDs, right? That way you can start setting up dashboards around this stuff. Your trace ID is wonderful. Please include your trace ID. Version of your software. So when you have a deployment, especially if you're doing a rolling deploy throughout things, you can tell, hey, which version is causing errors with this, okay? And it's a really easy way to keep that kind of interleaved execution context threads straightforward. So things we look at for better log messages. Keep them unique, right? Put pertinent information in there. Function entered doesn't really tell me anything, right? If I'm in a debug message. But hey, maybe starting this process with, you know, at this function in this repository, especially if you can just have it automatically tell you what class you're in, would be wonderful. Most good log messages will have a context. They will have trace ID. They will say, you know, user X is trying to do this, right? Or if there is an error, you're also going to include your stack trace with it. Do not lose that stack trace. It is so important. You know, if there is a certain number of organizations, if you're looking at timing or like a certain number of assets that you're managing throughout this thread, put a count on that, right? See why this thing is going slow. Hey, if I have 15,000 of one type of object following this thread along, that might be why it's a little slow versus if I have 5. Okay? And then avoid noise. Remove the full file class paths. How many times do we have the same class name existing throughout our app? And if we do, maybe we want to think about renaming them more specifically, right? But especially in the same class path, it's a little tough, right? And then delete logs that are not helping you solve problems. If you look at a log and go, that's useless, in every case, delete it. Don't ask permission, just delete it, ask forgiveness, okay? All right, and then for cleaning up our logs, we want to get to 0 errors, right? We want an error to be able to tell us there is a problem. Stop ignoring your errors, fix them. It might take a lot of time, right? I had one team where I walked in and we had 1,800 daily errors. That sucked. But about 800 of those were just one error that kept happening, and we could just say, yeah, ignore that. Don't log this, please. Catch it, move on with your life, okay? But make errors important again, right? And it can take a lot of time to get to that, but if you just stay on top of it and slowly work those errors down, you will get to a 0 error log system, right? And then you'll be able to see a log error and go, oh crap, let's get on that right now. That's how you're going to get away from all those defects, right? And that's really all I got for today.
Thank you very much. Can't tell which screen I'm trying to share. See what happens with that one. That doesn't look right, does it? I'm trying to share. Let's try another one here. This is the joy of having multiple screens. Let's do this one. Hey, all right. Lightning talks. Look at me. AI generated for you all. This is me. I'm Carter Wynn. I'm the VP of Growth at Source Allies. VP of Growth just means I do business development and help grow the skills of the team. Before, it also included growing the team, but I am no longer in that position, so I am just growing businesses and growing skills. I do have, why you should listen to me, I have about 20-ish years of experience in technology. I didn't want to write the exact date because I didn't want to date myself. 20-ish is enough, right? I am a husband, I am a dad, I am a proponent of saying yes. Say yes to things is a very believable attitude in my life. So make it happen. I wanted to talk about what makes projects successful, what makes products successful or unsuccessful. To me, delivery, I boil it down to two things in essence, right? And again, simple man here. So delivery and communication. These are completely loaded terms, right? So delivery means a lot. I am not going to touch on delivery. That is for the artists in the room that do the coding, that decide on the architecture, that choose the tools. I believe all that is part of what you all are really good at. What I am okay at is the communication piece. So I'm going to dive into that. And again, kind of a loaded term. When I looked up setting clear expectations online, there were not a lot of good quotes about expectations. Like, I was shocked at how bad the quotes were for setting clear expectations. It's more like this. The bad news, you can't have it all. The good news, you don't need it all. Other ones were like, the way that I'm happy, I don't have expectations. How do you become happy? Lower your expectations, right? Like all these things that I like straight up don't really agree with on a fundamental level, because we're building software, right? Like most of the people in this room are building software. Setting clear expectations is imperative to a project's success. Stories and tracking your work, imperative to success. The tracking work piece, like write good stories. A lot of the things that I have to talk about are loosely based on real scenarios. Some people in the room might know some of the stories that I'm talking about. One in particular regarding stories, I worked with a team that had to take a story, go to the tech lead, get clarification on what they were supposed to do. After like multiple instances of this, and this would be a lineup of 4-ish engineers, maybe 5, take the ticket, wait in line to go talk to the tech lead for more conversation. That's a massive waste of time. Stop that, write a good story, take the ticket, I know what I'm supposed to do, I know the expected outcome, move on. I have notes and I can't see them, so I'm going to do this real quick. And then I'll go back. What's the trick to slideshow? View, Command Enter. Great. The clear expectations piece, like if you don't know why you're building what you're building, ask the question. If you have a misunderstanding, or if you are trying to figure out what somebody is telling you to do, ask the question, right? These are all pretty common things, but a lot of people don't want to do that for the sense of it's just easier not to, right? I'll take my story, I'll do what I can. Maybe it does what it's supposed to, like I did what it says on the card. Was that even the right problem to solve? Like, there's so many things that could be solved by just asking questions. I think I always have to put Bruce Lee in my presentation, so here you go. He has multiple quotes you could add to this. Again, ask the questions, right? Clarify things. I'm trying to think of anything that has been done. I've personally been affected by this, where it's like, oh yeah, I'll do that thing. Walk out of a meeting. I know I have to do this thing. Day goes by, the person goes, where's that thing that you said you were going to do? I was like, I just thought I had to do the thing. I didn't realize it needed to be done by today. Like, I have multiple other things going on. I was going to get to it like 2 weeks from now, right? Ask the questions, clarify the expectations. That's such a fundamental piece of a successful project, in my opinion, that gets overlooked a lot of the time. Do the uncomfortable. Now, I'm not talking like walk down a dark alley late at night by yourself, right? Like, I'm not suggesting that to anybody. Don't do those kind of uncomfortable things. Do the things that you are trying to get better at. I don't like getting up in front of people and talking. I want to be good at it, so I volunteered to do a lightning talk tonight, right? Like, do those kinds of things. I'm on the board of Tech Journey. I was asked to join, and I was like, I don't know if I want to be on the board of Tech Journey. But I said yes because I need to get better at these kinds of things. I want to help youth in Des Moines get involved in technology. So I said yes. What else can we say yes to, right? Like, I don't know that skill. I'm a C# guy and I'm at the Java user group. I'm going to go do a Java thing, right? Like, say yes. Volunteer for these things. Do the uncomfortable. I do have to check my notes again just to be safe that I'm getting everything. But yeah, take on the responsibility, right? If you see the things on your team that need to be done and nobody's doing them and it's not really anybody's responsibility, do it. I know that it's taking on additional responsibility, but that's how you make a project team successful. That's how you build a successful product. So again, it might be uncomfortable because I have a lot of work and I don't want to do that thing, but that thing really needs to get done. On the flip side of this, and I think this might be my last slide, say no, right? Another kind of uncomfortable thing to tell people, but no is a valid answer to a lot of questions. Can you do this? No. I have multiple priorities in front of this, so taking that on would cause me too much stress. I can't do it, right? All of that is valid. That's all I really have for my lightning talk. Any questions about any of this? I'd even love to hear a story of something along these lines of asking the question or anything like that if anybody's done this before. Never had an interactive lightning talk, have we?
I'm just trying to understand how the say yes guy is recommending we say no.
You're spot on, like, ask lots of questions, like, a lot of it is just to get clarity of my mental picture of whatever it is we're working on or how things work. You know, I might not know every single gory detail about something, but if I know at a high level and I have a mental picture of it, and it sort of is close enough a model to work from, then I usually success.
Amazing. For those online, John just said he asked a ton of questions. I have a teammate that the PO that they're working on, a software engineer, has said she asks so many questions and he loves it, right? Like it is, like sometimes it can make the meeting go a little long or whatever, but by the end of those meetings, everybody knows what they have to do. Everybody knows why they're doing what they're supposed to do, right? So it is ask the questions, make the people uncomfortable a little bit with those questions sometimes. I also believe in the vulnerability of it. So to all the, we'll say more senior, more experienced engineers in the room, asking the question because you have less experienced people on your team is a great way to show them that it's okay to ask that question, right? And you might know the answer, but if you look around and you see your table or your team of 4, 6, whatever it might be, and some people looking quizzical, ask the question. Like what you don't want is for everybody to leave the room and then whisper about like, hey, did you really know what was going on in there? Like, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. Clarify. Get the assumption cleared. That's it for me. Dustin looks so good up there on the big.
Yeah, he does. All right, let me see if I can share quick. We'll get everybody on their way. All right, my turn to go back to slideshow mode. I brought my laptop up this time, so this will work. All right, how about one more round of applause for all our presenters tonight? Everybody great? Awesome. So we have a couple more announcements and a raffle, and then you guys can grab pizza and get out of here. Thank you again for joining us. I've seen a lot of faces tonight that I don't usually see. Feel free to stop back, bring your friends, tell whatever companies you guys are working at that Side Jug's back, and we love having people here. So that will be July 10th again. This is the 6 Secrets to Succeeding with Microservices with Michael. Really excited to have him. They're flying him in from, I don't even know where he lives, but he's flying into Des Moines for this talk next month. So I'm excited for that. Next, I have a JetBrains raffle to give away. So everybody that is in the room, or if you are online, I put your name on a giant wheel, and we're gonna spin it, and whoever wins, will get a sweet raffle. Let's see if I can remember how to do it. I'll show everybody's names too. I gotta make sure I got everybody. Look at this giant list. I know we got online, so we got to do a virtual wheel too, unfortunately. So I think everybody's name's on there. I'll spin it. If you guys win and don't want it, let me know. Let's see how it goes. I'm trying to remember how to do it. Click, spin. Woo! It spins much faster on this than it spins up there. You're the champ. You win it. You want one? All right. You want it? Yeah, that's a yes. That's a yes. Okay. All right, we got a winner. Anything else? I wanted to give one last shout out to some of our sponsors, if I can remember how to slideshow. Source Allies hosted and got pizza tonight. Thank you so much to Source. They also do all of our social media stuff. So if you see us online, they do all that. It's great. JetBrains got us a raffle, and then No Fluff is bringing folks next week. I believe No Fluff Just Stuff is a conference in town. I think it's September. I think. We'll have to check, but they're bringing somebody next week or next month. I'm assuming when they show up, they usually also bring like I don't know if it's like a discount code or I'll be surprised if they don't bring some special treats for whoever shows up next week. So that's all we had. You guys can feel free to hang out, mingle, take as much pizza as you want, and we'll see you next month. Thank you guys.